Welcome to Off the Wire, the podcast that helps you curb cybersecurity risk and tackle technology challenges. I'm Tanner and I'm joined by Anthony. We're two IT executives with a combined 35 years of experience in the IT and cybersecurity field. Let's start the show. So welcome back, everyone. This week we're going to kind of go to maybe what a lot of people would think is not a technical subject, but I think is really what a critical part of IT, and that's really customer service. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and why, in a lot of ways, IT as its core is a service department. There's a lot of other service departments in any organization, but really IT has this huge focus on customer service. But at the same time, we have to drive innovation, and really all of those things kind of come together as customer service. So we thought we'd cover some of that this week, talk about some of the things that we feel is very important from a customer service standpoint within IT, give you some of our tips, and just talk about like why I think this is, Anthony, like kind of overlooked in many IT departments around the country.
Yeah, this is something I hate to generalize people, but I do think IT people, this is for the most part, this isn't a natural thing, customer service. Since this is something that I don't feel comes naturally to most IT folks, I do think some it does come naturally too, but since I feel like more of us, not so much, I think this is something that we really, as IT professionals, we need to work at and focus at because of a lot of us do have lacking customer service skills.
Yeah, it's always one of those things. I think just because we're technical people, we kind of always we try to focus on technical things first. I see this a lot when people are providing solutions. Um, they blow right past like what someone's asking for something to do, and they get into like technically what it can do. I'm just as guilty
Yeah.
of this as anyone because I get really excited about that kind of thing. And that's not the attitude to have. We talked about this actually in a prior episode, but I think one reason a lot of people kind of fall short on customer service is they don't start at the beginning, right? They think customer service is something like gets developed. In reality, I think it's something that really starts when someone comes into the organization, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely when you're just really interviewing someone, I would say this is just good advice, period, is don't race to hire. When you're hiring someone that's an individual that, you know, especially in the co-op world, we're known to have long-term employees. So this could be someone that you could be working with 15, 20 years. So I think it's very important to don't race. A lot of times you just feel by the time we're get a position open, so we've been without this person for so long, we've got this role, we've had this hole in our department, and we feel like we need to fill it quickly. Like we're just behind and we need this person, we need a warm body. You got to mentally break yourself apart from that and you need to focus on the position, make sure it's the right person for your organization. And one thing I would say is we all have this gut feeling on people when we meet them. And I'll say this, like if you're interviewing someone and if you don't have in your mindset that this person could be a top performer in a few years, then maybe isn't the person that you want to hire. If it's someone I don't know what to call, I always call it the warm fuzzy feeling. But if you don't have that warm fuzzy, you don't necessarily have to. It's worse on you long term to hire someone that's not the right fit than to wait and go back to the table and take another month or whatever it takes to interview more people and find the right person. But definitely, you don't want to rush to hire.
Yeah, a lot of people you kind of hit the nail on the head there. A lot of people they really get in a hurry because they feel like, man, if I don't find the position or the person for this position right away, they're gonna like maybe pull the position or something like that.
Yeah,
But there really is nothing, and I have direct experience with this. There is nothing worse than having someone come in, work for 2 or 3 years, and not work out. You're back to the drawing board. You really feel like you've lost because those first couple years, if they're not working out, then you're probably not getting what you're wanting out of that position. So it really just it sets you back even further. So totally agree that you should definitely give it a little more time to make sure you're getting that right person. So for the stuff that we look for, and I'm sure you probably have a few things to add to this as well, but I mean, one of those things is kind of like I said, IT being customer service focused, we're looking for someone that has kind of a servant's heart that like really enjoys helping people, not just does it because that's like something they can do, but actually, really is motivated by that. Obviously, you have people calling in. You need someone that can stay calm. You need someone that can de-escalate situations. Good problem solving skills, which might seem kind of weird for customer service, but really I consider that kind of a customer service attribute. This person that has good problem solving skills is going to get to the answer quicker, and the quicker the problem gets fixed, really, it's better customer service. I mean, that's what someone expects. Like if they can call in and you can quickly handle something, then that's a good experience for them. Uh, and kind of like I said, plug in that other episode we did. Make sure you have really good hiring practice around this. Um, and I think that kind of like what you were saying about that warm and fuzzy. If you have the right hiring practice and the right set of questions, I think you can kind of get that more objectively, if that makes sense. You can say, well, here are the questions. Here's how, like, here's the answers we need from those questions. And this person did well against that, or they did poorly against that, which helps. And then one thing I kind of wrote down that I think is you said someone that's social. And I would kind of like see what you think about this. I think there's a balance of social and non social because I've seen it go both ways. You could have someone that's completely non-social. Obviously, is not a good candidate for a customer service role anywhere in IT. Um, at the on the reverse side of that, you can have someone that's really, really social, and if you don't, you do want to actually do some work throughout the day as well. So, I think you need that like refined social where it's like someone that can be social but has the ability to kind of just feel when the conversation needs to end and needs to move on to the next task, that kind of thing. Um, I definitely think it's kind of a seesaw in that regard.
Yeah, one thing that you mentioned, and this isn't so much customer service, but the one thing you mentioned was during our hiring episode was find someone that's passionate about the job. And I do think that if you find someone that's passionate about the job, that those people I think do tend to be more customer oriented. And the other tip from that episode that kind of sticks out related to this is reach out to HR and they can help you ask those kind of questions to bring out that. Just tell them what you're looking for, and they can help with that. I'm sure you can do research and find that, but I'm sure your HR department would be more than happy to help you find someone that's customer service oriented.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think um, that's just that's something that they're really like good at. So leverage that. You just like kind of need to leverage everyone's skill sets and your HR department. I mean,
You know,
that's right in their wheelhouse.
the next part I want to mention is IT. It's the backbone of most businesses these days. So you want to act like it. We've got a lot of IT folks where they've kind of got the mentality that if an end user comes up for help, it's kind of like they're a nuisance. Well, that's what we're there for. The whole point of IT is to make people more efficient and better at their job. I mean, that's one of the core functions. If the IT department doesn't make the other departments better or more efficient in a secure manner, I'll throw it out there. But if you're not making people more efficient or better at their job, then what is the point of IT? I mean, that's one of the main things. And I know you'll see this, and we don't really think of it with IT departments, but how many people have went to like a fast food restaurant and it's almost like you're a nuisance because you're there trying to buy food? I mean, unfortunately, those places exist. And imagine if your department's like that. Is your department like that? That would be just imagine how that would be to be working with an IT department that every time you come in, they're like, oh, what does he want? Or what does she want? To have that anyways, you really just want to make sure that your folks aren't doing that and you're not doing that. I know sometimes there's some people when you see them, you're going to think that, but you just don't want to be that person. You don't want your department to be like that.
So another thing that I think really goes along with that is I see a lot of people. I see this from colleagues where they kind of take on. I don't know how to say this, but like kind of a lower role. Like they like voluntarily make IT like a lower role within the organization, right? Where they kind of act meek and um, like own the fact that like technology is important. If you need any proof that technology is not important, wait till the next big outage you have of a technology product. Walk around the halls, find out who's actually working at their desk, and you'll find that there's very few, if any, that are actually doing that. So technology is critical. It doesn't matter what kind of company you run, from like a plumber all the way up to a Fortune 100 company, and kind of own that. Like, take pride in that and say, hey, we're going to provide the best possible product that we can, whether that be reliability of our actual applications, the service that we provide, the quickness in which we respond. You need to embrace that. I see it. I just see it's too much people that are kind of voluntarily like making themselves overly meek. Um, and you need to take a little bit of pride and ownership, I guess, of how important you are. And that doesn't mean you're kind of overconfident and cocky, but it just means that you like understand like how critical you are, and why you should be the best person, the best department you can be.
One thing I'm envious of is the software developers where they get to build all these tools and stuff all the time. Was like a sysadmin or network admin or cybersecurity person. You know, we don't get to do that a whole lot, but it does happen. And if you make a process more efficient, or you implement some new tool and it helps folks out, that's something that as a leader you need to champion and bring out. Or someone that's restored a home or built a home, the same thing goes with them. But for an IT department to improve a process or to make people much more efficient, like there's all these wins, and I think it's important as a leader to kind of showcase that and make sure that you guys are talking about it in your department as well. Any thoughts on that, Tanner?
Yeah, no, one thing that really does is that is kind of it really drives home customer service, right? Customer service isn't always about just fixing things. It's also providing like good solutions, and good solutions can be something new, or it could be some efficiency that you've gained, or anything in between. So that is providing like a good service, a more reliable service, a more efficient service for your end users. That is kind of, in my mind, the definition of customer service. I think one of the things that, and it kind of goes back a little bit to the hiring process as well, is um, you really got to look for people, and you got to train people that are already there in the empathy. Empathy is one of those things that I think, because we kind of feel like we know how to fix computer problems, we get this thing like, I don't know, that this problem is like, it's just so easy. Like, and we don't put ourselves in someone else's shoes, right? I don't know, it's probably a silly saying, but people always say, "Oh, you're so good with these things. You're so good with computers." I mean, I get that like privately and at work, and so do many of all the folks in our group. But one thing I always tell them is like, "Well, this is my gift in like accounting, or operations, or whatever other department. Maybe it's HR. That's your gift. And if you put me in that situation, then I would kind of fail, right? And if I needed information on those kind of issues, then you're the person that I would come to as the expert. I don't think we do a good enough job of really putting ourselves in the other person's shoes. Is like, in a lot of ways, like, what an honor to have someone come up to you and say, "Hey, I know that so much about this, that like I'm having this problem, and you're the person. You're the person out of all the other people I could maybe have come up to that I know is going to be able to fix this for me." I mean, I don't know. I mean, to me, I take a little pride in that. A lot of people get annoyed when like friends and family are asking for recommendations on a product, but to me, I mean, honestly, I mean, how much more of a vote of confidence can you have in someone's skill set than to ask them their opinion? Now, some people ask you your opinion and they immediately go and just do whatever they were going to do the first time. but but honestly, I mean, really, I don't think we see it as that. Just like if I had a question about a way to recruit, I would go up to our HR department. I would ask them, and because they're the subject matter experts, and so empathize with the person when they're having a problem. They're coming to you out of a position of weakness, where they don't know how to fix something, and that you're the expert, and they're just really hoping for that positive interaction with you.
Yeah, and I think that's a good way to. I know, and we all occasionally get frustrated at our job, and it's easy to do. But if you just put your self in that person's perspective, it can bring things to light. Sometimes I wish users were better at computer systems, but there's been times where I think I've been told that I'm a little too soft with the linemen. And I just remember one time they're like, "Well, they can do this on the iPad," and I don't know if we were talking about password resets or something like that. I was like, I just remember thinking, I was like, think from their perspective. They're there to, like get the lights on, store outages and build new lines and stuff like that. Like their primary focus isn't to sit on an iPad. I know we do that, sit on a computer or an iPad all day, but for them, that's really not what they're there to do, and nor should they. And just kind of, I think it just helps putting yourselves in people's shoes, and to when you're making decisions that could impact them, especially impacting end users.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, and, I think another one of the this kinda we're kinda going through some of the things we wrote down here, but, something that really, I don't know, grinds my gears, I guess I'll get up on my soapbox here is, and I know there's a fine line as well, but I think I see a lot of, folks out there that that are working in IT departments or in some cases leading them, not many, but in some cases, and they're really kind of focused on being reactive. I mean, they're not really focused on it, but that's what it's become. And I know in some cases we talk about this all the time, like kind of that. Do I fix the issue at hand? Maybe sometimes it is that reboot. People joke about that, but sometimes it is that reboot that fixes things. Or do I look at the root cause and try to figure out why keeps happening and how can I eliminate this? But I think we're just not proactive enough a lot of times. That's something we need to be looking at, and that really increases customer service. Actually trying to look at, like, what problems keep happening to our users and how can we fix them so that we don't have those problems again. We don't spend as much time on that. I think a lot of it is there's such a rush of technology. Everybody's feeling like they're trying to put in so much technology. Things move fast, and it doesn't feel like we take a lot of time for refinement, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and you hear this with customer service is that first call resolution. I mean, you can really apply that to your IT department. If someone calls and they're having an issue, will a reboot resolve the symptom? Maybe, probably in a lot of cases, or do you want to find out what's causing that so it doesn't, repeatedly happen? If you're constantly dealing with the same issue over and over as an end user, like it's got to be completely frustrating. And then if you're telling them to reboot every time they call in, like that's a poor customer service.
Yeah, agreed, and I mean, I kinda going back to that taking pride, thing, it's also a poor reflection on yourself. It might be hard to hear, but that's a poor reflection on the department, and if you're an IT leader, it's a poor reflection on you to continue to let that go. Um, that's what they really pay you for, is not only to fix the problems, but to, like, get out ahead and eliminate the constant, reoccurring problems. Well, I know your big thing is self-service. I'm kinda curious of what you hear about this. I've got kind of my own opinions, but, like, how what where do you see self-service as part of, like, providing that good customer service to, users?
So with self service, I kind of look at it just like I look at managing the department. All of the employees in the IT department, we're all very different, and which is a good thing. And when you look at your end users, they're the same way. A lot of them are very different from each other. You've got some folks that they're going to want to be face to face. You're going to want some that they just want to do a ticket, get it fixed, and get an email response back. And you're going to have some people where they want to fix the issue themselves. And giving them that ability, they're going to be happy about that. And that shows that you respect their time and you don't want to slow down the process of them fixing something. A couple of simple examples are for them to be able to reset their own password. We have a portal for that they can do, or we have a list of IT approved software. Well, we give our users the ability to install that themselves. Little things like that will go a long ways. And anyways, just I would think of it just everyone's different, and you're going to have some people where they would much prefer just to solve things themselves. And that's going to make your department more efficient and be able to focus on those other people that don't want to do the self service as well.
Yeah, I think that's something we could work on, personally, we have certain things, I mean, the password resets, stuff like that, but I kinda like that idea. We have newer and newer employees coming in. We are starting to see people that have more interest in that. Um, kind of a funny story though, we had a chief operating officer when I first, came into the company, that he would always want to know how you fixed his computer, like, down to the intricate detail. It wasn't and I'm really not sure, maybe he was just curious, and that'd be kinda neat, I guess, but, it wasn't so that he didn't call you next time and fixed it himself. It was literally just he wanted to know. He just, like, I guess he was curious about it, and I always thought that was pretty impactful for me. So I guess in any way you can kind of work that kind of thing in, not necessarily from an IT customer service, but honestly from just an inner office, communication dynamics. I thought that was pretty cool. So something that I think there's quite a few companies kind of caught on to this now, and I think sometimes people use it as kind of a bludgeon onto the users instead of what it really should be, which is a customer service tool, is like a ticketing system. So I don't know how we've had a ticketing system for quite a while, probably 10 years or so. Found that to be very useful in a lot of ways, and I think you guys do as well. And maybe in your mind, what are like the benefits that ticketing system gives you that helps you like have a better customer service level?
Yeah, and we just rolled ours out. I kind of lose track of time, but I want to say it was 3 or 4 years ago. So, and there was a lot of debate. Like, I knew we needed the ticketing system, but I also didn't want to impact user experience. But what you'll find without one is we're all human, but we would find people that would catch us in the hallway and say, "Hey, my computer is doing this. Can you take a look at it sometime?" When you're on your way to go ahead and fix something else. And I feel like I have a little bit of ADD, and if someone tells me something in the hallway, like it's gone 30 seconds later. And so what we were finding is we would have people that weren't having a good customer experience because they were like, "Well, I told you about that 3 months ago and you never did anything about it." And it wasn't like we maliciously ignored them. It was because we've got a million things going on. And on top of that, we were getting stopped constantly when we were out and about to go work on an issue. People would catch us in a hallway or see us in someone else's office. And while we're trying to focus on said thing we're trying to fix, they're introducing another thing that we need to look at. So, and that's where when we rolled out the ticketing system, we kind of spun it as this is so we don't lose track. This is so we resolve all the issues that are brought up. And I can honestly say this as far as I know. I know we've closed some tickets because either the issue resolved itself, but as far as closing a ticket and there was no fix, that shouldn't happen. And I'm not saying it doesn't ever happen, but if it does, it's very rare. And now, if someone brings up, well, I brought this up like 6 months ago, how come you guys didn't do anything? And it's really, and this is kind of not great customer service, but I'm like, did you put a ticket in for it? And almost always that's been the case where they don't do a ticket. So I know you can use it as a hammer to kind of against your end users, but really for the most part, you need to keep it in a positive manner so people are using it. But you also need your company's support and supporting you and using a ticketing system. So that was something each of the department heads, we spoke with them and the supervisors as well. I said, we're trying to roll out a ticketing system so we can better serve you all. And I need your support in helping us do tickets and make sure people do tickets for their issues. So that's how we use it in a positive manner.
Yeah, one thing also that a lot of people overlook is from a customer service aspect is the historian aspect of a ticketing system. So let's say you do have a problem, maybe it's like very sporadic, happens once every 6 months, 8 months, or whatever. By the time it comes around again, you're not gonna remember how you fixed it or, how you worked around it. So having that ability to actually go back and look and maybe take out some of that troubleshooting process can actually resolve the issue a lot quicker if it happens again. Um, I will say though, one thing that I do see people do, and honestly, we have to kinda watch ourselves on this as well, is from time to time, you gotta make sure you're maintaining good ticket hygiene because, like you said, it can be a really useful tool for you, but if you don't maintain good hygiene with it, it's not something it's actually gonna kinda roll back into that hammer, or that, object that you feel like people will feel like you're beating them over the head with. Things like a good prioritization, uh, and this is something we actually ask in the hiring process. We give them a question where we actually list, like, 5 different things that happened to them. A ticket comes in about this, someone walks up to your door about that, et cetera, and we actually have them prioritize and kinda give their reasoning behind why they would work on each thing first, because that happens. But also, you gotta think about, like, handoffs. You got an open ticket, someone's going on vacation, someone's gotta be out tomorrow for whatever reason, they got a doctor appointment. Then you need to, like, have good handoffs, right? "Hey, I've worked on this with this, I opened a case with this person, Jane Doe is going to be working with you tomorrow on this. I'm gonna be out of the office." Keeping that good communication up, making sure that you're doing follow-ups. Sometimes we have times where we're waiting on an employee, right? They're just not available to help us or show us what's happening. So making sure you're doing those like follow-ups every few days. Hey, just checking in. I wanna help you fix this. Or is there a time you're available that I can help out? Um, those kind of things are like hygiene things that's part of a ticketing system that I think it really seesaws the effectiveness of that as a customer service tool. If you do those things and you're like really consistent with those things, it becomes a great tool. If you're not, it actually I think maybe even hurts you more than you would have had even without it.
Yeah. Another thing that I thought of is, and this is something, so every month I go through the completed tickets and look through those. And that's one thing with the ticketing system, it'll show you trends. What are you repeatedly getting issues with? And also, since a lot of the details are in those tickets, um, like for instance, we have like all of our emails that are reported as phishing emails. They'll go in there, and if someone reported one that really wasn't a phishing email, it was a legitimate email, I'll look to see that did the person in our department, did they respond and explain them that this is a legit email and how they could have, know that. And anyways, I would definitely, I know if you're a 1, 2 person shop, that's probably going to be very difficult to do. But for those organizations that have more folks and have a ticketing system in place, I would definitely spend 10 minutes. It doesn't take a whole lot of time to review tickets. So you don't have to look through each one in detail, but it's just like if you got a call center, they're going to listen to some random calls. Do that with your tickets. Look through a few of them and kind of see how it was resolved and closed, and make sure everything's properly documented in there and it was a good resolution.
Yeah, and I would you kind of mentioned it already, but you don't have to look at every single one. Just do a random sample. That's honestly how almost everything is done as far as from a customer service metrics kind of point of view. Is like just pull. Hey, I had 100 tickets this month. I'm gonna pull 12 of them and look at those. I'm not gonna look at every single ticket because I know most likely if someone has you get into a trend. If you're doing a good job, it's a good trend. If you get into a bad job, it's a bad trend. Most likely you pull 6 or 12 tickets, you're gonna start seeing that one way or the other. If you have a ticketing system and you're not doing this, you need to set metrics for your customer service as well. Um, Almost every customer service centric organization, so think of like a contact center, a call center that might be doing that. They're gonna have metrics, like you mentioned, first call resolution, like metrics on their ability to perform a great customer service interaction. We're a customer service department, just like many other departments are. We need to have metrics as well. If we're not measuring ourselves, I mean, I had our CEO. He has this, and it's not his mantra, but it's a mantra that's been out there. It's like what gets measured gets done. If you're not measuring how well of a job you're doing, it's really hard to kind of stick your finger in the wind and say, "Hey, I think we're doing a pretty good job." If you don't have any objective metrics to compare that against.
Another thing I think that helps with customer service, and actually, this is one of the first things I did when I started at my organization, is I met with each department or representatives from each department. And I did that initially, and honestly, I gotta kick myself in the butt. I need to do that more regularly than I do. I kind of had a habit of it and kind of got out of the habit, and I do it on occasion, but I would just set like even calendar invites twice a year to talk with folks from each department. So a lot of times you're really not going to get feedback unless you ask, and that's one of those things where, well, even if they don't have anything to say, it shows that you care. So I would definitely do a sit down with each department and try to see what they feel like. What's the weak points? What's your strong points for your department?
Yeah, and if you are a strategically led organization, then this needs to be something you do before you set your strategy for IT, not afterwards, because your strategy should really revolve on needs. And if you don't know the needs, um, and those people that I mean, I would just say try to pick as many people as you can to talk to from different levels of the organization if you can. But really prioritize the people that are willing to give you honest answers. There's a lot of people who will tell you everything is fine. Um, but I want the people that will tell me if everything is fine, and they're gonna tell me if everything is not fine as well. Make sure you kinda make those relationships around your company, those people that you can ask to give you kinda honest criticism because, we know we're not perfect, we're human, There's always gonna be things we struggle with that we're not doing as good as we should. If someone can't give you an honest answer about that, then it's not really helping you improve that customer service level.
Yeah, and for those people that are vocal, like I know of 2 people that they're a little rough around the edges, but they will give you honest feedback, and if they tell you something, like, you better believe that there is an issue. It's not like they come up with stuff, they're fabricating issues. Those people, like, let them know that you appreciate that. I talk about them frequently, even, like, all employee meetings. I mentioned how that, if they have an issue, they're gonna let me know, and like how important that is, because if no one's saying anything, like, issues can go on for years, and people, they'll be upset behind the scenes and not really say anything. So really incentivize people to be open like that.
Yeah, that's what you want. I mean, you want someone to be honest with you. Oh, so one of the other things that I thought, you had written down here that, like, I think is a great, point is having a kind of a habit or a pattern of good customer service. We talked about some of the things that make that up, right? Having, tickets and being on top of tickets, being empathetic, meeting with the people, finding out what they need to provide those solutions. What that does over time is it builds up that trust and credibility, um, of your department, and I'm sure I heard this somewhere, but something that I use all the time, and I tell our team all the time is I use this what I call the cup of influence, right? So every day that we do a good job on a ticket, every problem that we solve quickly that gets someone back to their day, back to their job, every innovative solution that we put out there, we pour a little water into a cup, right? And we keep doing that over and over and over and over and over, and we're filling that cup up. From time to time, we have to make withdrawals from that cup. Maybe it's a cybersecurity initiative that's coming up. A good example that comes to mind to me is multi-factor, right? Multi-factor is not fun for anybody. Like nobody loves multi-factor. It's like, oh man, I'm just so excited that we implemented this. In reality, it's a response to a way, or it's our response to people compromising credentials. And everybody hates that. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, nobody is happy about that. But if you've done that groundwork of doing that customer service, you've poured enough into that cup. Every once in a while, when you take a little bit out of that cup, people are going to be understanding with you. They're not going to give you as much heartburn, um, and they're going to be more patient with you. Um, so, kind of, I use that as an example, but constantly fill the cup up, and then you're going to have to, from time to time, make a withdrawal, and people are going to be okay with that.
Yeah, you definitely want to fill that cup up, because you never know when you're going to have to lean on another department. So just me thinking back to 2020, our transmission crew, they helped us out. We had to stand up 6 new radio sites, and we had some racks that had, they were probably about 400 or 500 pounds, and these guys took them up several flights of stairs in several different locations without complaining. And that's just where we provide good customer service, and we're a credible department, and so they respect us and helped us out when we needed help. So you never know when you're going to need someone to scratch your back as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. One thing I'll also add is make some good relationships with other people. And we talked about people that'll give you honest feedback, but make some good relationships with people that'll give you honest feedback even when you don't ask. Um, a lot of the leaders, kind of in our company, we have this understanding that we need to look out for each other, right? And if we see something that maybe isn't um, something that maybe an attitude that someone displays that isn't the best, they'll come and they'll talk to me about it. They'll say, "Hey, John Doe, he came and worked on my computer, and he kind of just felt like he was not really paying attention to me or whatever." Obviously, that's just an example, but make those relationships with those people that will actually just kind of look out for you and mention things for you before it becomes a bigger problem, so you can take care of any type of customer service issues right away. It's better to do that. Anything that you let simmer is obviously going to be a bigger problem later on. And I don't want this to sound like kind of a sleazy thing at all, and it kinda, to me, goes back to caring, but it sounds simple, but learn about your users, like, learn about them. Like, talk to them about their life. I mean, you're in there, you're on the phone with them, how are your kids? learn about, like, the things going on, relate with them. That helps you with patience as well. You know, if you think about it in your personal life, if you had a random contractor come to your house, let's just say a plumber, right? How much patience are you gonna give them if they need 2 or 3 times to come out to your house to fix the problem, right? Probably not a lot. Now, let's rewind that and say your best friend is a plumber, right? And your friend comes over to your house and he's fixing your thing and he needs a couple 2 or 3, times to come out and to visit and to fix it. Which one are you gonna be more patient with? You're gonna be more patient with the person you like better. And the reason, like, the way you get to know people and to get to build those relationships is, getting to know them, like, learn about their life, what makes them tick, and, I know that's not we're fixing problems, we're working on computers, but as you're doing that, like, try to integrate that, into that dynamic, and I think it'll pay dividends later on.
Another thing with customer service is it's just like anything else, it's a muscle. Like you gotta use it or you're gonna lose it. It's kind of like hitting the gym. But you need to. This is something, and we need to work on this internally. We haven't. I like to think that we focus on customer service, but we really haven't talked about it enough. I'll say that. And one thing that I remember, it was actually at some management training that I went to, is clear is kind and unclear is unkind. So with that, if you're not talking to your folks in your department about good customer service, you're really not being clear with them. So, that's being unkind of them. So you definitely want to talk about it and bring it up and have it as a topic of discussion for your department.
Yeah, and kinda along with that, you need to and this kinda goes back to the SLAs, but you need to have some, like, what you call minimum standards or, like, expectations. Um, a really wise guy that I worked with, um, he always used to say, "People do what's expected of them." And if you don't have a what expectations are, like, what your expectations of customer service are, follow-ups of going the extra mile, then people aren't gonna do it. I mean, they need to know what's expected of them, just like I need to know what's expected of me. I mean, people like that, it gives them a goal to reach for. It helps them understand what is good, what is bad. The more muddy you make things, the worse your customer service is gonna be. Like you said, be clear, concise. If you don't practice customer service, you're not gonna get better at it. So, kinda to the point about listening to calls and things like that, see how you're doing. If you have to, do some, like, lunch and learns or something, Maybe do a little role playing. It's kind of a funny example, but I don't know how many of our listeners might be big Office fans, but there's a scene in The Office where, Michael is trying to, teach Dwight to be a better salesman, so he gets Jim across from him, and they have phones, and obviously the phones aren't connected, but they do these calls where they're doing sales calls, and Michael's giving him kind of like insights, and it obviously is a very funny part of that show, but there's a lot of truth in that. Maybe it's seriously like, hey, I got an issue with this, and kind of having the person role play out what they're gonna say. Um, I think some people may think that's beneath them, but sometimes you just really got to take it back to basics.
Yeah, we were doing pretty good. We called them brunch and learns, not lunch and learns. But that's something we need to get back with. We and this is something, a friend Corey, he told me, and this worked out great for us. But like for our operations folks, they'll have a safety meeting. We join them, and joining them and listen to them, it helps build relationships. And just like you said, just try to meet with the employees and just getting out there with them and seeing how they do their job and stuff like that. You're going to learn a lot, and also it's just going to show that you actually care. And another thing is like, internet news postings. Just make sure you're communicating with the end users at your organization. And just like one thing, and I know we've brought it up several times, but for like the cybersecurity, we do the phishing emails, and a lot of people, they would look at that as a negative thing, but we do a quarterly raffle for the people that properly report it and do that $250 gift card. So every time we give that gift card out, we make sure we take a photo of them smiling and post it, and that gets just a lot of people excited about cybersecurity, which is very hard to do. Sometimes you got to be innovative and do things that are kind of outside the box to help improve customer service with your department. Another thing with customer service, if you've got a department that's got low morale, they're not going to be able to provide good customer service. So make sure that you're taking care of the folks in your department. Make sure that they're taking care of themselves. Make sure that they're taking vacation. But you need to communicate with them and see what's going on in their life, and just make sure that things are working out for them. So if you got people that are just unhappy, period, they're definitely not going to give customer service.
You always got to keep in the back of your mind, is how well is the department functioning, and is there something underlying that's maybe um, keeping us uh, from achieving the customer service we want to do. We've said it a couple times, but kind of plug episode 17. If you haven't heard episode 17, go back and listen to that. We talked about hiring practices, how to retain people, all those things, and how to like make sure morale is up on your team. If you think about it, I was kind of thinking back as kind of some final thoughts on. We talked a lot about customer service, but in reality, if you think about most of the things that we talked about customer service, it really comes from like a person, the inside of who a person is. Um, it's that empathy, it's that wanting to go above and beyond, it's that wanting to follow up. Obviously, there's some expectations that need to be set externally, but in reality, a person fits that customer service role really or they don't. I was a little hesitant to put this out there. Didn't write it in our show notes, but I'm a big believer that um, a position fits a person or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, then that's something you've got to handle. I think either getting someone into a role that better fits them. But in an IT role, if customer service is not something you have a heart for, I think this is going to be hard to succeed. Um, really, IT is a service department. It's a customer service department in the same way that a call center is a customer service department. And the sooner we realize that, the sooner we make that part of our mission. I think the more credible we are, but also the better success we'll have. So, like I said, I think it's just something to, there's some good deep thoughts we've opened up. Before we kind of wrap up here, Anthony, do you have any kind of final thoughts from a customer service perspective?
Yeah, I just want to mention to the folks, to the people that aren't managers, I'll say this: good customer service. If you ever want to get in a leadership position, you need to know what good customer service is and be able to provide it. For some of those organizations that don't have IT, like IT director or VP of IT or CTO, they're really not going to want someone that isn't providing good customer service. So if you expect to be, to have a seat at the table, like you need to know what good customer service is and to expect it. So, anyways, for any of those aspiring to grow in their career, that's something you definitely want to have a heavy focus on, not just the technical aspects.
Yeah, there's a saying that I think we can kind of end on is you're interviewed every day. So just remember that. Like you said, for those out there wanting to move up, wanting to, or honestly, even if you don't want to move up, if you just want to be better, some people like, I really, I admire people that just really want to like refine their craft. Um, just know, I mean, you are interviewed every day, you are looked at every day. And so figure out ways that you can kind of refine yourself and make yourself better. Um, one question we ask in a lot of interviews is, describe to us a time recently when you received good customer service. And I think that's a good way to look at it. If you take nothing else from this episode, think about the last time you felt you had good customer service and what were the aspects of that that you want to capture, and then figure out how you can display those same aspects to the people you talk to. So, Anthony, another episode. I think this is a really good one. Kind of one that we kind of threw in there. Customer service was on both of our minds, and we just felt like it was something we wanted to really talk about. Again, to our listeners, we're so happy you're here. We really loved doing the episode last week where we did the like listener suggested episode. If you haven't had a chance to listen to that, I highly recommend going back and checking that out. And thank you to the listeners for suggesting that. I thought that was pretty cool. So again, if you're listening out there and you have an idea for us, it's something you want us to cover, something that maybe is on your mind that you just thought, hey, I'd like to hear a perspective on. Just reach out to us. You can reach out on social media or shoot us an email at show@offthewirepodcast.com. Again, we release episodes every other Monday. And this has been another episode of Off the Wire.
Thank you, everyone.